Hello, my name's Emma Roberts and I'm here today to introduce you to a self-help technique called EFT or emotional freedom, also known as tapping, which is an amazing tool that you can take from this moment on to use for yourself to manage your emotional state and also to get pain relief or relief from physical symptoms. EFT is a form of emotional acupuncture in as much as we work on the same principles as acupuncturists do. We use the body's energy meridians, which are the channels that carry our energy through our body, and we tap on specific points to clear any blockages in those channels. I'd like to introduce you now to Kay, who's very kindly volunteered to be the visitor today to help show you how to work with this technique. So, it looks a bit weird, you're tapping on various points of the body and you're talking out loud at the same time, and if you're on your own doing this, you're talking to yourself, but that's completely fine. Just give it a go. The first part of this is what we call the setup statement, which involves tapping on the side of your hand where you deliver a karate chop to somebody if you were going to do that. Okay, and you want to be tapping quite sort of hard enough that you can feel it, but not that you hurt yourself. And you tap 7 or 8 times. Basically, you tap in as long as it takes you to say the words that we're going to say. And at this point, we introduce what's called the setup statement, which is a statement which incorporates the negative issue that we're working with. And as I said, for teaching you, we're going to use the problem. And a positive affirmation. Now I'm going to introduce you to the default affirmation, which is I deeply and completely love and accept myself. It's not very English, and most people don't believe it, but it really doesn't matter. If you can say it, then that's great, because that's the ultimate aim of all therapy. If it's too much for you, you can change it to what you feel comfortable with, to like, I'm okay or I'm good. Whatever, as long as it's positive. There's something about the juxtaposition of the negative and the positive that kind of opens the channels for the rest of the work to be effective. So it's a very important part. And we do this setup statement 3 times. It's okay, do you want to follow me?
Right, okay.
All right. So, what we say is, even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love myself.
Even though I have this problem,
I
love and accept myself anyway.
I love and accept myself anyway.
Even though I have this problem,
I
deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Good. And as you can see, I vary the words a little bit. You could play around with them. You don't want it to become like a mantra, so you just play around with them. Play around, I love and accept myself anyway, or I'm okay, or whatever. So we're going to do that 3 times as we just did. So the second part of the process is what we call the sequence, the EFT sequence. And it involves taking a couple of fingers, and I would use your dominant hand just because that arm tends to be stronger, but it really doesn't matter because the points are mirrored. So if you do prefer to work with your less dominant hand, that's fine. It's just more comfortable, I find. So taking a couple of fingers, okay, if you want to follow me, the first point is at the beginning of your eyebrow, kind of the bridge of your nose, that's it. And you tap a few times there and you repeat out loud this problem. So this problem. The second point is on the side of your eye, on the bony bit. If I turn my head, you might be able to see that. This problem.
This problem.
Under your eye, again on the bony bit. This problem.
This problem.
Under your nose. This problem.
This problem.
On your chin. This problem.
This problem.
Collarbone point. We say tap where you'd knot a tie, simply because the actual collarbone points are slightly hidden under the bones, and this sends a vibration along both, so it's easy to remember. This problem.
This problem.
And under one arm, in line with your bra strap. This problem.
This problem.
And then using a kind of claw on the top of your head. This problem.
This problem.
Good, and take a deep breath. How are you feeling?
Fine, yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Sometimes when you start working with EFT and you haven't done it before, you can get sort of a few sort of, I say side effects, that's not quite the right word, but you might feel a little bit sort of lightheaded, a little bit dizzy. That passes in a matter of seconds. You just need to kind of keep tapping and breathing, or maybe have a glass of water. This work can be quite dehydrating, so we suggest always that you drink a lot of water as you do it. So what we want to do now is just put those two pieces together, which will give us the whole kind of formula for EFT. And then we'll actually work on something specific with K. All right, so if you want to follow me, we'll go back to the karate chop point. Even though I have this problem,
Even though I have this problem,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I have this problem,
Even though I have this problem,
I'm okay.
I'm okay.
Even though I have this problem,
Even though I have this
I
problem,
deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Great. Eyebrow point. This problem.
This problem,
Side of your eye on the bony bit.
this problem,
Under your eye on the bony bit. This problem.
this problem,
Under your nose. This problem.
this problem,
On your chin. This problem.
this problem,
Where you'd knot a tie. This problem.
this problem,
Under one arm. This problem.
this problem,
And on the top of your head.
this problem.
And take a deep breath in and out. Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's,
Yeah, good. Do you want some water?
yes, please.
Okay, so well done. So now what I'd like to introduce you to is just one last piece of this, which is how to measure your own work, the effects of the tapping for yourselves. I find it's really useful actually to go out and get a really nice notebook when you start this work so you can see how you're progressing, because when you recognise that you're making the difference by doing this technique, it's you, nobody else is involved, it's hugely empowering. So I want to introduce you to the scale of 0 to 10 as to how intense you feel about whatever it is you're working with here and now. Not how it felt yesterday or how you think it's going to feel later on, but right in the moment that you're using the tapping, if you bring this thing to mind, how do you feel right now? So, I didn't do that with Kay because we haven't got a specific problem at the moment, but supposing we had and she'd started at a 10, highly intense, and we'd done a round or a couple of rounds, and it had gone down to a 5, we might change our language a little bit in the setup statement and the sequence. So I'm just going to explain to you how we do that by showing you with Kay exactly how we would go about that. So, back onto the karate chop, okay? Even though I still have some of this problem,
Even though I still have some of this problem,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I still have some of this problem,
Even though I still have some of this problem,
I am okay.
I am okay.
Even though I still have some of this problem,
Even though I still have some of this problem,
I love and accept myself anyway.
I love and accept myself anyway.
Good. So eyebrow point, remaining problem.
Remaining problem,
Side of your eye on that bony bit, remaining problem.
remaining problem,
Under your eye on the bony bit, remaining problem.
remaining problem,
Under your nose, remaining problem.
remaining problem,
Chin, remaining problem.
remaining problem,
Collarbone where you'd knot a tie, this remaining problem.
remaining problem,
Under one arm, remaining problem.
remaining problem,
And on the top of your head,
remaining problem.
problem. And take a deep breath in and out. Okay, good. So, how are you feeling right now?
Well, I've got a slight tingling actually in my head.
Okay.
So-
Is it an uncomfortable tingling? Or?
No, it's fine.
That is actually quite common.
Yeah.
That's a sign of kind of energy moving around and shifting. We don't know exactly what it's doing, but it tends to be a sign of some form of release. As we've been focusing really on this problem, your unconscious mind will have applied that to more or less anything.
Yeah.
The trick with EFT is to actually get it very specific, which is going to be our next step. But if that tingling was causing you distress or was uncomfortable, what you would do is you would just keep tapping until it passed through, just to help it. I often say it's a bit like emotional plumbing. You get your block and then it starts to move, and sometimes it needs a bit of a helping hand, in which case that's when you bring the tapping in.
Yeah.
Are you okay with it, or would you like to tap?
It's fine. It's
Yeah.
not a problem.
Okay. Cool, good. So, I think it would be useful for the viewers really here if we could start to work on something that actually kind of is up and real for you right now. And you talked to me a bit earlier saying you had a pain in your...
It's like in my hip. Yeah.
So whereabouts specifically in your hip is
It's
that?
like on the top there.
Okay.
It's just a bit tender. It's not a pain as such, but it's just a bit tender.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to teach people how they'd work with a physical symptom like that, and then we'll do some work ourselves. That's okay, yeah? So there are 3 specific rules for working with physical issues, whether that's pain, whether that's a niggle, whether that's just a generalised kind of, oh, just don't feel very good. And they're as follows. The first one is the location. You need to be very specific in your language when you set up your setup statement. So that's the bit that goes, even though I deeply and completely love and accept myself. You have to be very specific about the location of the symptoms. So in this case, and Kay's just said it's her right hip, and it's kind of at the top of it, is that right?
Yeah, just at the side.
Okay. I often say, imagine it's kind of like you address a letter to, if you were going to send me a letter to, and you put on Emma Roberts, South West London, the chances are it would never get to me. If you put my full postcode on, the chances are I would get it. In the same way, if you set up your language skills correctly with the tapping on your setup statement, it directs it far more specifically to the location that you're working with. So this is actually a very important piece. So you've got location. The second thing you have is the quality. And you were describing that as tender, you said. So that's what we mean by quality. Pains can be hot, cold, sharp, intermittent, throbbing, whatever. They might not be pains, they might be aches. All sorts of different language. So just work out what feels right for you. That's the only thing that's important actually, is that it has to be right for you. It has to be your language. So that's the second rule. And the third rule is to assess it in the moment on our scale of 0 to 10. So with those 3 rules in mind, I'm just going to now work with Kay on this pain in the hip. All right, Kay, so just want to recap. This pain is in your right hip.
Yeah.
And it's a tenderness as opposed to a pain?
Just a tenderness just at the top of the bone there.
And on a scale of 0 to 10 right now as you're sitting here?
About 5.
Okay, all right. So how we will make our setup statement is we'll go as follows on the karate chop. Even though I have this tender pain, or ache did you say?
Just a tenderness.
Okay, even though I have this tenderness in my right hip.
Even though I have this tenderness in my right hip.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I've got this tenderness in my right hip.
Even though I've got this tenderness in my right hip.
Just there.
Just there.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I've got this 5 tenderness just there.
Even though I've got this 5 tenderness just there.
I am okay.
I am okay.
Okay, eyebrow point. Tenderness in my right hip.
Tenderness in my right hip.
Side of your eye. Tenderness in my right hip.
Tenderness in my right hip.
Under your eye. Tenderness in my right hip.
Tenderness in my right hip.
Under your nose. There's tenderness just there.
Tenderness just there.
Chin. Tenderness in my right hip.
Tenderness in my right hip.
All my thoughts and feelings about it.
All my thoughts and feelings about it.
Everything going on in my right hip.
Everything going on in my right hip.
Tenderness in my right hip.
Tenderness in my right hip.
Take a deep breath. Let's check in on it. We've only done 1 round, but let's just check in, because there's a very strange thing that can happen, is that pains can move. Pains that can seem to have been in one place for years and years and years will suddenly move across the body. And if that's what happens, we need to chase it. We call that chasing the pain with EFT. It happens so often. So just check in with it. Is it in the same place? Is the quality the same?
Maybe slightly less.
Yeah?
It's not travelled.
And as we were talking about it, doing that round, any thoughts come to you? Any feelings, emotions?
No, not really.
No? Okay, cool. All right, so what we'll do is we'll just persevere. So, even though I still have some of this tenderness in my right hip,
I still have some of this tenderness in my right hip.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I've still got some of this tenderness in my right hip,
even though I've still got some of this tenderness in my right hip,
I love and accept myself anyway.
I love and accept myself anyway.
Even though I've still got some of this,
even though I've still got some of this,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Still got some tenderness just there.
Still got some tenderness just there.
Everything going on in my right hip.
Everything going on in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness just there.
Remaining tenderness just there.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Everything I feel about it.
Everything I feel about it.
Remaining tenderness just there.
Remaining tenderness just there.
Even though
I've
still got some of this.
I've still got some of this.
I love and accept myself completely.
I love and accept myself completely.
Even though I've still got some tenderness just there.
Even though I've still got some tenderness just there.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I still have a little bit of that tenderness.
Even though I still have a bit of that tenderness.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Eyebrow point. Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness just there in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness just there in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
All my thoughts and feelings around it.
All my thoughts and feelings around it.
Everything I've stuffed in my right hip.
Everything stuffed in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness just there.
Remaining tenderness just there.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Remaining tenderness in my right hip.
Okay, take a deep breath in and out. And what's happening now?
Feeling okay. I'm okay.
What's okay feel like?
Maybe about a 3.
Okay,
3.
all right. So when we were doing that round, I was throwing in different language, and the point of doing that is that you kind of keep the thing alive for yourself, so you're not just doing it by rote. You said, I was saying things like tenderness just there, whatever's going on in my right hip. You want to just play around different pieces of language just to see what happens. When I was doing that, were there any thoughts or feelings coming to you?
Not really, no.
Okay, so my next question for Kay would be, what was going on when this began? When did it first start? And you want to be asking that for yourselves as well. When did this first start? What was happening in your life? And no matter what the response is, it might seem completely unrelated. That's what you want to be following. So, what was happening in your life at that time? You don't need to tell me specifically.
I've got, since I've had the secondary diagnosis, I've got pain in my right side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of gone lower down in my hip recently.
And did it start with the secondary diagnosis, at the point of diagnosis?
No, not necessarily. Sort of after it, with surgery and stuff like that.
Okay, so do you think it's come from as a result of the surgery? Is that what
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm not
Okay.
sure.
When you
I have had a scan, but at the moment with myself, I don't find out the results.
Right. Okay. How do you feel about that?
I'm happier to be like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't really want to know.
You don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
Okay. Good. All right. So when you think about the surgery, how do you feel now when you remember what happened?
No, I'm okay with that. It's just that it's caused different sort of problems.
Yeah, but no kind of...
I don't really dwell on that.
No,
I don't dwell on that.
Cool. So for some people, they might go back, you might go back to a surgery or a diagnosis or something like that and find when you bring it to mind now, you feel, I don't know, angry, upset, sad, whatever the emotion is. That's the next piece you would take with the EFT, you'd move on to that, so you'd work on, even though I'm feeling angry, even though I'm feeling sad about that, you know, whatever it is for you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's where you'd follow, because very, very often physical pain, well, I say very often, actually, dare I say always, physical pain has an emotional aspect to it. It's not the whole thing, but usually there is an emotional component. And if you find that for yourself, you may well find that will shift the pain further. The other thing to say is that if you get the pain down to about, well, anything actually, emotional or physical, if you get it down to about a 2 or 3, sometimes that will continue to process and it will kind of disappear with time. And when I say time, I mean a matter of minutes, maybe a couple of hours. If not, you come back to it. I think we've done 3 or 4 rounds here. You might need to give it a lot more attention than that. And that's fine. You can't over-tap, you can't do any harm with this. The worst that can happen is that you get bored. Nothing can happen, and that's absolutely fine too. But it's very unlikely that nothing will happen. Very occasionally, you might find something seems to get worse. That will be a temporary thing. This is the moment when a lot of people think, oh no, the tapping's not working, I'm going to stop tapping. Absolutely not. This is when you need to keep tapping. Step it up. Step up the speed, step up the intensity. Because what's happening is that another deeper layer is producing itself for healing. And as you tap, that will process too and that will clear. So if you find something gets more intense, recognize it's only a temporary intensity and keep tapping with it, and it will clear, and it will clear healthily and hopefully for good. Okay, so after that round, a couple of rounds, you've reduced it from a 5 to a 3, is that right?
Yeah.
Is it still, do the words tenderness still work for you? Or
No, I'm just aware of it.
Okay,
Just aware.
all right. So let's just pick up on that and do a couple of rounds on awareness, and it's still a 3, yes?
Yeah.
All right. So, even though I still have this awareness in my right hip,
I still have this awareness in my right hip.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I've got this awareness just there,
Even though I've got this awareness just there.
in my right hip,
In my right hip.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I've got this awareness just there,
Even though I've got this awareness just there.
I am okay.
I am okay.
Good. Eyebrow point. Awareness in my right hip.
Awareness in my right hip.
Side of your eye. This awareness just there.
Awareness just there.
Everything going on in my right hip.
Everything going on in my right hip.
All my thoughts and feelings about it.
All my thoughts and feelings about it.
This awareness just there in my right hip.
This awareness just there in my right hip.
Awareness in my right hip.
Awareness in my right hip.
Remaining 3. Awareness in my right hip.
Remaining 3. Awareness in my right hip.
And everything connecting to it.
Everything connecting to it.
All right. Take a deep breath. Okay, so how are you feeling now after that round?
I'm just aware of it.
Yeah, and is it still the same as 3 awareness, or is it?
Just, yeah, maybe not so, just slightly under that.
Okay,
Just
right.
aware.
And just for the viewers who are watching this, what you might have noticed is that Kay changed her language for that round. So we moved from tenderness to awareness, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's really important to just check in that the language, the words you're using, feel right to you here and now, no matter what they are, as long as those words work for you. Okay? Even if you can just tap on one point, and this one's usually quite a good one. This is Meridian, the House of Fear in Chinese medicine, actually. That's quite a good one to tap to kind of just rebalance if you can only get one. If feelings are really present in the moment, there is absolutely no need for any words.
Right, okay.
So, for the viewers who's watching this, if you're feeling very anxious or suddenly something's made you really angry or whatever, you just tap. Don't worry about the words because you're right in it. The words are to instruct your unconscious mind to direct the tapping to where it's needed. So, having said that, I think if you can say the words out loud, I'm a great one for the tap and rant routine myself, which is you just tap round and you just say it as it is. Once it's out there with the tapping, it kind of changes your relationship to it.
Right, okay.
And it's also quite funny, you end up laughing. Some people do get concerned about saying the negative all the time. Now, if we weren't tapping, I would absolutely be with them on that. But there's something about the tapping and saying the stuff that we're really thinking, speaking our truth, if you like, from a negative perspective, or the stuff that's interrupting our peace and joy. You say that whilst you're tapping, and that rebalances the system so that it actually releases the negatives, the negative thinking. Now, you do have to be very persistent sometimes, not always, but sometimes you may need to do, and we've done a few rounds here, we may have needed to do a whole load more. Actually, as it happened, we didn't, but then I think Kay does a lot of mindfulness as well, so she's kind of a step ahead of the game. Sometimes things can get worse before they get better. That is usually a temporary thing. That tends to be the point when people go, oh no, the tapping's not working, I'm not going to use this anymore. That's completely not what you need to do. What you need to do is to just up the tapping, do it faster, more intense, maybe shout the words, sometimes that can make a difference, but just keep going and it will process and you will get relief. Same if you cry, that's absolutely fine. but keep tapping through the tears, because you'll find that with that, the relief you get when the emotions subside is very different to the relief you get if you've just cried. You know how crying can kind of loop? This kind of brings it more to a resolution, to a calmness, a state of kind of peace, which is ultimately what we're looking for here. So to wrap up, EFT is a very, very simple technique. You can take it from what you've learnt in the last 10 minutes and you can apply it to yourself for physical and emotional issues. The trick is to line your language up right. So not how you think you should sound or how you'd like to sound to somebody else or what you'd like it to be like. Say it as it is. You need to be specific with your language. So if you're working with a physical, you remember our 3 rules: location, quality and intensity. If you're working with an emotion, you need to be specific with that emotion, work out how it's showing up in your body. Track your progress using our scale, because that will give you a really good sense of what you are achieving for yourself. Because for me, that is the real power of this. And there are practitioners, you can go and see a practitioner, that's fine, they can help you through maybe some obstacles and get you going, but the real gift of this is that you can take it and use it for yourself. This is one way where you can clear the negativity, the effects of that, and you can take your own power back and take charge of your process really in a whole new way. It works beautifully alongside the medical model. It also works alongside any complementary therapies. I often say that EFT is not proud. Just try it on anything. It just, it works as a component of a healing journey.